Sorry about that. All right, tonight what I'm going to be doing is testing the firmware on the Gibbon. I updated it yesterday. I didn't have a chance to test it yesterday, so typically what I do is I'll write a big block of code and then usually test it right away, but yesterday I didn't have time, so I was doing it today. And this one I seem to have updated. This one I did not, so it's sort of awkward. I was hoping to have this done before I went live, obviously, but that's the way it is. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do is update the firmware here. I lost my little screwdriver. If I can find my screwdriver, I'm going to update the firmware. And then, I don't think I can get this off by hand. I ruined so many Arduinos by prying them off with the wrong tool. And I know that the right tool is the one you have, but the right tool to take a Arduino chip out of a socket is not a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm almost 100% certain about that. But when that's what you have, I guess that's what you use. Nope, you didn't miss anything. This is sort of an awkward start. I was hoping to have this done and up and running, but right before I went live, I realized that I had updated the firmware in this one, but this one either didn't take or I didn't do it or who knows. So I have to set it up again. I've got my little Arduino here and I gotta burn it on. I know this is making for some riveting YouTube, but kind of is what it is. And then we're going to go through and I'm going to step through the features and see if they work the way they're supposed to. Oh boy. Oh boy. One of my monitors turned off. This is turning into a fiasco. Oh, there we go. All right, I don't normally keep the Arduino plugged into the computer because it's not very often that I have to do this, but kind of is what it is. We'll just put the Arduino chip in the socket here. And I'll find the firmware. And we should be off, hopefully. The other one works fine. So if all else fails, what I can do is just use the other one. But we should be okay. All right, and we're done, hopefully. Again, prying it off with a Phillips head screwdriver, not probably the best plan, but found the right tool. Too late for that. All right, this is good fun. There we go. Let's see if it works this time. So the way I knew it wasn't updated was I set the clock to external and then set the clock division to super dense. It should be jumping around like crazy now, and it's not. Because this is divide by 0, and I'm using the clock from the percussion sequencer. And as you can hear, it's not really happening that much. By contrast, this one up top is what it should be doing. So the heck? This wasn't meant to turn into live coding. But I guess it kind of is what it is. No, the code I added is in there. Wonder why it's not taken down here. I guess we'll just... Clock is set to external. And this then becomes the clock divider. This should be as slow as it goes. And this should be as fast as it goes. And yet... nothing. Oh boy. What are the default internal connections in the MIDI 3 module in the System 10? Oh my god. That's pretty far from what I'm doing right now, but let me think. In the System 10, the CV1 goes out to the volt per octave input of the synth box, or synth block, and the gate 1 out of the MIDI 3 goes to the ADSR input. Those are what the two things that are normal there. Yes, Yotis, I'm playing the popcorn song. I think because I don't know why this isn't updating, I think we're just going to ignore it for the sake of ignoring it, because I really honestly don't know. Unless it's just a stubborn jerk and doesn't want to update for some reason. I guess I could try it one more time. If it doesn't work, then we will give up and just play with the other one. Of course, I just dropped a screw in the case. Oh, things are going bad tonight. It's not always pretty. It's not always pretty. Synthesizers are tough. I had a plan. It was a good plan. I thought as long as I do these things with a plan, everything typically works out. All right, I got my Arduino. It's in there. It's in there. Let's find my code. I have the right port. It's all set up. Why aren't you doing it? Why? It's compiling. It's uploading. And done uploading. So it should be good. Like I said, if it's not, we will move on because this is, I understand this is gripping YouTube content, but what are you going to do? Hope everyone is well. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight as I poke around with this stuff. I'm here having some fun this evening, and I figured you guys could join me as I do some testing. I typically enjoy this testing stuff pretty much a lot because it's all new to me. So because it's all new to me, it's very exciting to me, and I think it's fun. So let's this should be maximum clock and set to external clock. All right, now it's set to external clock and maximum clock. Mode is set to volt gate. Yeah, something's goofy. All right, so we will just shift up to the other one and pretend like everything's working totally as it should. Because as you can hear with this one, it's, there we go, see? There's nothing to see here. That's what it should be doing. Yeah, you know what, Bill? It's kind of what it is. It's, you know, my job. This is what I do. I try to solve these problems, so when you get it, it works. Okay, so now that we have what we're going to use tonight, let me walk through the patch because it's a super basic patch because I just needed something to pluck around with, honestly. No pun intended. So I'm using a sine wave from this oscillator here. That's this blue wire that's coming down into the dynamics controller that's built into the voltage lab down here. That's set to low pass gate and pluck mode with the shortest response time. A touch of resonance, which really isn't doing much. If I can add some more resonance, you can hear that. We'll just leave that. It sounds nice. That's being plucked by the gate out of the Gibbon, and then the CV out of the Gibbon here is going to the pitch of the sine wave. That's the main source. Then the output of the dynamics controller down here, I ran it through the local Florist and then into my mixer. The local Florist is set to full dry though, so we're not even hearing that. I figured we could play with that in a little bit because I do want to give you a demo of the feedback on that, and the super short plucky sounds works really well with that. But first, we're using the super short, and the reason we're using these super short plucky sounds tonight is testing the Gibbon. I wanted to make sure I could hear all of the subdivisions because I have now and I had set it up in a way that it should give me some. I'm setting it at a pretty fast clock. That's why it's getting hyper dense super fast. And I'm not pretending that this software is completely bug-free, but it's what we're playing with. This is how I sort of test it. So we're just going to give it a slower clock. So what we're doing here is we're just going to run through the features in this just so I can test them. Mostly focusing on the changes that I made the other day. So we have our knob down here, which is our variation knob. This knob sets the density. So this is sort of the clock division and the probability that the clock divisions are going to play. So what we have and this difference between this firmware and the original firmware, although you guys haven't played with either one, so it doesn't matter, it's all just firmware, but what I added was a clock divider in there for external clocks. And the reason I did that was, as I've been playing with it over the last couple days, I found that sometimes if I have a pattern going with an external clock and I wanted to get the variation of the higher or the lesser triggered clock divisions like 8th notes and 16th notes, I had to turn it up so much that it became very, very chaotic. So if I added a clock divider in there, I could still get those 8th notes and 16th notes to trigger now and then without making it super popcorny. Although that's kind of what it does, so it's going to have a little bit of that anyway. And it seems to be doing exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm not entirely sold that the clock divider is working properly. That's okay, I can play with that later. The spread seems to be working fine. The spread is the distance that the random change will happen in any particular bucket in the shift register. If it's full right, then it happens. Let's go back, zoom in. If it's full right, then it has basically the entire CV range to work with, and as you tighten it up, it pulls in the range that it may change, although there's still a chance in sort of a bell curve way that it could get some outliers and have much wider or much shorter change. And then the stages, actually there was a bug in the original firmware where the stages, it should be 1 to 24, the bug made it 1 to 9. And again, because it's sort of chaotic, you can't really count them anyway because a couple end up changing here and there, and I couldn't hear it. It took me a while to realize what was going on. So that's what that is. And this seems to not be working entirely right. I don't think the clock divider is right, but the stages are definitely working. So let's move on from there. I'm happy with the way it's sounding. It's working for today. I do have some, I can add my, again, I'm working with the MIDI Verb 3. Add a little bit of ridiculous reverb. That's always super fun. But we're going to turn that off for the moment because I want to demo something on the local Florist. And this is because I was playing with this patch a bit before I went live, and I was really experimenting with, let me go back, let me move the camera down here. I was experimenting with the feedback, and I think this is sort of the party piece of the local Florist, and this is why the local Florist is so interesting. So if I'm going to bring the feedback full left. See, so why a 24-bit shift register as opposed to some other number? You can set it from 1 to 24. The knob adjusts it from 1 to 24. I picked 24 because that's what Buchla had picked, and it seemed like anything more than that, honestly, anything more than really 12 or 16, it becomes hard to decipher, but 24 I went with it because that's what Buchla used when he did the shift register. So local floor, if you, oh, by the way, in the chat, if you want me to definitely see your chat at me, and there we go, Yotis. Do what Yotis did and at me so it shows up big and orange on my screen. And I know to, you want me to explain what a shift register is? Okay, think of it as a rotating set of buckets that, almost like a sequencer, where but it doesn't have really a beginning or an end. It just kind of cycles through however many buckets you tell it to have. Each time, and then every clock step, it moves to the next bucket. When it gets to that bucket, there's a chance that it'll use the amount of voltage in there, or it will change. If it changes, it uses the new voltage, and then saves the new voltage in that bucket. Until it comes around again, it could either use that voltage again or change it. So, and then what you're doing is you're setting the number of buckets or number of steps or stages that you have in this shift register. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's go back. Now let's listen to the local Florist. I'm going to bring it in. I think. So here it is with no feedback. And if you're not using feedback, you have to use a lot of modulation because it's pretty close together and you don't really hear that much. So I've upped the modulation rate to near audio rate and upped the mod depth. And that has a kind of cool sound too. But we'll dial that back, way back down, and just bring in the feedback. And this is kind of what makes this different than like a typical flanger or a chorus, is the sort of hyper precise feedback that we can get. I like that. Musical chairs. That's a good one. So you can hear this is just the local Florist now. Basically, we're just giving it this is what we're sending it. And now the mix is set to about 50%. Yes, it's in software. The shift register is, I coded the shift register on an Arduino. So I elaborated on it a little bit. The module has a couple other random things in there, the way it works, but that was the inspiration for it. So if we adjust the time, the control of the feedback is really the key here. It allows you to do so many interesting things. We can just dial it back, way back the other way. So now this is shortest time. And with the feedback, you just let it ring and ring and ring. Oh, it sounds so good. We can add some modulation. Now there's a built-in LFO, but you can certainly use external modulation as well with an attenuverter. We'll just go to full wet. That's fun. Oh boy. Add some reverb. I just reset all of the buckets on the Gibbon to be back to their starting point. So I'm now using on the Gibbon, I'm using the internal clock and a very slow clock, so I can dial in the variation a bit more. Yeah, Clay, we worked really hard to keep the clock noise out, although at the speeds we're using this at, because we want it to be short, we're playing in the short range. Clock noise isn't that much of a problem, as opposed to, you know, when we're setting up like the analog delay unit, we're constantly fighting against clock noise, and that's sort of the analog delay when you're designing that stuff. It's the perpetual fight of you want longer, but you also don't want to hear the clock, but you don't want it to be real dark. So. So I was playing also beforehand with different oscillators. So this is the red oscillator up here. I can just turn the zoom off here. Take the pitch out of that and put it in the primary oscillator, the voltage lab. And you'll hear the difference, I think, right away once I patch in the voltage lab here. So this is the oscillator now, the voltage lab. A little bit different, maybe? Quite a bit different. Maybe an unfair comparison because it's not apples to apples. But this has just a naturalness to it that I absolutely can't get over. Now we can open up the dynamics controller. We can open up the response, which is the response curve of that pluck. Now, because we're in low-pass gate mode, it's never going to be that much longer, but it does add. So it's a little bit different. You can't really hear it because we have so much feedback, and the feedback delay repeats are so long in the local Florist. If we dial that, so we're just listening to maybe, if we go short, you can hear verse long. It's amazing how different this sounds. Just dry. When you dial in a sound with effects on already, it sounds so different than if you would just start from scratch and say, okay, I need to make this sound good on its own, because when you're using it with other things, you want all you want is the end result. Not what happens in the middle is really irrelevant. So as we bring this back in, it all sort of comes back together. Yeah, see, so we will, we should have the local florist relatively soon, in a couple weeks. I've seen the panels. They sent me a picture of the proof, and the panels are just gorgeous. I can't wait till you guys see them. And then the Gibbon and the other 2 Zoo modules that we're doing, they're going to be probably closer to 7 or 8 weeks out, but they're in production as well. So this is the sound we were getting out of the voltage lab. Let's go back up here. So I'm curious how close we can get. So let's take, I can't remember which one I was using. Let's use this one. We'll take the fold wave here. Take our pitch. So this sounds really good now too. That sounds really, really good. They do have slightly different wave folders in them. The primary isolated wave folder and this module here. And the main big difference is this has the warp circuit, where this one does not have the warp circuit. The dual dynamics isn't canceled as much as it is on hold. It's yeah, it's hard to explain what state that module's in right now. It's been sent in for production, but it hasn't been approved yet for production. So there's still some work to be done on it on the other end, and then it'll go to production. But it will happen. It's just we're in the middle of a transition here now, and so it gets a little awkward sometimes. And that's unfortunately that's a module that kind of suffered a little bit because of it. So let's try that. Let's do the drive circuit instead. The drive circuit's kind of interesting because it's going to take us from off to a triangle at the very, very tip of off. And then as we bring the drive in, it's just going to blow it out into a square wave pretty fast. The Florist panel it's based on, the flowers are there. It's the same flowers, but the graphics are a little bit different. I can't do the graphics like this. Here, and I'll show you. I'll show you what I mean. Let me zoom in. If I zoom in, I don't know if you can tell, but there's sort of this fantastic kind of weathered panel, and it's on the channel driver. You can see it a little bit closer. You can see it on the Gibbon as well. And the reason the panels look like that is because my printer at work sucks, and we didn't realize we were missing several of the ink cartridges. So it printed these crazy lines, and I liked the way they looked, so I kept using it. But obviously I can't have it silk screened like that. So we did add a little bit of flourish to it. The actual production panel looks absolutely gorgeous. It's really, really nice. It's a black panel with blue and yellow printing. It's really cool. I am a fan. Hidden devices, you like the sound of the primary oscillator from the voltage lab more? I think they do. I think they both sound really interesting. They do different things. So let's now we're going to patch it. So we're going to take the wave folder out into the overdrive. I think there's a ton of really interesting sounds in this patch. Now the way this is internally patched is we have the sine wave that goes through the waveformer now patched into the drive circuit. I think this would be a good patch too. Let's try it. Let's, instead of doing pitch into the pitch, well, yeah, I guess we'll do pitch into pitch, and then we'll take the exponential FM. All the text is covered up in tape in these. It's hard to figure out what's going on. And let's use an envelope. So let's split the gate out over here. Let's see. And let's just use, we'll use the function generator down here so we can make it nice and tight. Alright, so now we're going to hit this with FM. Oh, I had the dynamics open so it was leaking. Nice, Astromass. Congratulations, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're using this function generator here to tweak the pitch, or the FM, the exponential FM of the oscillator up here. And we'll bring the main pitch down. Zoom back out here. Now we can sort of play with the function generator to get it more percussive or less percussive. But boy, I think that sounds really freaking good. The SV1 was designed for people that were, I always said it was designed for the modular curious. And that's really what it is, because you don't need patch cables to start, but as soon as you want to play around with patch cables, you have full access to everything. It doesn't limit you by only giving you a few patch points here or there. It's a full modular synthesizer. So in that regard, I think it works so well. Now, there may be a little bias, but that's what I think. I'm going to bump my gate up here. And get another copy of it. I'll send this one to an ADSR. Send this to the fold if I can find the... Here's my fold CV. So I think that's a pretty cool tune. Well, I don't know about cool tune, but it's definitely a cool sound. We're modulating both the pitch with the gate and now the fold with the gate as well. Hidden devices, there is a reason why that we don't don't have a bunch of stuff at Tome On right now that I can't really explain yet, but be patient, and I promise you in the next couple months everything's going to change, and you'll be able to get our stuff hopefully in a lot of great different places. Be patient. I appreciate you looking. Makes me happy. So what if instead of, because right now we're starting with a sine wave, what if we start with the square wave? We're going through the fold, that's not going to do as much. How about the saw? Let's see what the saw sounds like. I think because we're running through so many different wave shapers, I don't know if it really matters what the core waveform is. Yeah, they all kind of sound the same. I'm going to switch down here in the dynamics controller from low pass gate to filter plucking. Ooh, let's turn down the resonance. This changes the response quite a bit, as you can hear. You end up with what it is, even at its shortest, it's a longer decay. We'll turn the reverb off here for a second. And now, honestly, what we're hearing, 80% of, or 90% of what we're hearing is a local florist. If I turn this down. This is what it's getting from the oscillator. We'll turn the pitch up. So we're getting a super percussive thing. We'll turn our FM down. Sounds like what are those drums called? The Syncussion. Is that it? I think so. And we can always go out of the local florist into delay too. There's no one rule. Oh boy. That's good. Space basketball. Yeah, Astromess, unfortunately, these are really the only two Gibbons that exist. I think we have a couple more kind of built at the shop, but this is it. But we will have more soon. We're making 200 of them, and they will be out. And I say this a bunch. The reason why we're making these little modules, and we're not making a ton of them, is that we don't want to have to sort of commit to keeping them in the line forever. It's really just a way to test these circuits and experiment with them with other things, because the circuitry at this point is meant for larger synthesizers. So we're doing these small runs of these modules really just to kind of celebrate the ridiculousness of them and the fun of them and share them with the community as single modules, because the circuits ultimately were designed for and will end up in a larger instrument. But this allows me to play with them and really tweak them and find the bits that I like and find the bits that maybe need to smooth off or harsh up, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a great way for me to kind of experiment with stuff. And then once I'm happy with it, doing a run of a couple hundred of them I think is a great way for you guys to sort of get in on the fun. Yeah, the System 10, the oscillator of the System 10 is a great grandfather, I guess, of the oscillator we're listening to now. We like to evolve things instead of just start over, so it's an evolution of what we started with. And this is an oscillator Michael Johnson developed years and years ago, and we've just sort of tweaked it and changed it and modified it to suit our needs, and now it's grown into something that is really interesting. But the roots were in the System 10. It had that still had that core sound. The System 10 had a very East Coast sound, so we were very focused on let's get these couple basic geometric waveforms sounding really, really good. And we've just then built on that from there. And actually today, Michael doesn't come into the shop very often because social distancing reasons. So today, actually, in the United States was a holiday, so everybody was off. So Michael and I went into the shop because no one else was going to be in there. And I sat about 10 feet away, and he ran through a demo of some of the new wave shapers that he's working on that we're going to be using in an upcoming project or two. And they were stunning. Some of the concepts are really interesting in the same way that the warp circuits in the Voltage Lab is interesting. We're really jumping into new territory, and these things are just bonkers. So they were all wave shapers that he showed me. He showed me 4 different circuits today. He had them all breadboarded out. And he just sort of went through them, and we patched them in a bunch of different ways, and boy, it was impressive. So I can't wait to get those into modules just like the local Florist, just like this. You know, the idea is that these circuits will find their way into larger instruments, but in the meantime, I'm absolutely going to get them into small because I got to play with these things. Some of the concepts are just over the top. But that's the future. This is now. I like the ridiculousness of how this sounds. So I wonder what if we go to linear FM. The linear FM doesn't seem to pop as much. And that makes sense. The response would be slower because the response is linear. And as you can see, I have the linear, it's not labeled, or maybe you probably can't read it. The linear response, I got to move it up quite a bit higher to get what would even still be a little bit less of a response out of it. So I think for this percussive stuff, the exponential FM is the way to go. The reason both types of FM are interesting is exponential FM, really, you can just blow out the signal and just mess with the frequency quite a bit. But with exponential FM, you have no pitch tracking then at all. Like you can go crazy with it. Here's an example. I'll send in a sine wave. Well, let me pick one from, it's not behind my head. I'll take this sine wave here and patch it into the exponential FM. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And we'll do sort of an audio rate. So this is audio rate exponential FM. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to get volt per octave pitch tracking out of this at this point. So it's just blowing it out of the water. And let's do the same thing now with the linear. You can hear the difference. Much more restrained in its response. reason is we want to hopefully retain some of the volt per octave pitch tracking while using linear FM. Because theoretically, you're dragging the waveform up above in pitch as often and for as long as you're dragging it below pitch. So it should average out to be still in tune. Now, once you get to the extremes, that sort of falls short, but it does work for a while. So that's the interesting thing about the two different types of FM. But for percussive stuff like this, when it doesn't, it's atonal, it doesn't matter. The exponential FM is definitely where you want to play. So we could make this. Now I'm just goofing around. I've lost track of testing the Gibbon nearly entirely, but that's okay. That sounds really nice. I like that a lot. Again, I don't know how much other than the FM, I don't know how much the actual sound of the oscillator is really affecting the overall sound. When we turn down the reverb, we turn off the Florist. This is what we're pumping through it. That's awesome. You could hear the overdrive and the drive circuit. We could dial that way back. As silly as that gets. Let's pull all this out and let's just do a simple sine wave again. Or even, let's switch back to the primary oscillator here. Just for fun. This is the sound. If you guys go back and watch the original teaser videos for the Voltage Lab, this was the sound I used for the giraffe video. I just sort of stumbled across it. Because there's no local florist, it's just Right now it's just the voltage lab and the analog delay built in here. But we can add the Florist back in. Just adds a little something to it. I don't know when the tape's coming off, but as soon as I know, you guys will know. I know they're in production now, so we got a lot of things in production, as you can tell. There's a lot of spinning plates. Turn down the range here and reset the Gibbon, so it'll kind of, it starts the buckets all at the center point, and they'll sort of evolve again. Let's see what we get. I love these sort of super non-traditional synthesizer sounds. This is what I'm really interested in. Sounds like this that are very organic, very natural, but a bit odd and a bit off. In a way that you're like, I guess that could be a real sound, but it sounds maybe a little broken or a little weird. This, to me, these kind of sounds are what I sit and hunt around for, and then I'll just play with them because I absolutely love them. Bill, the reason for the red tape is the graphics are ridiculous and they're awesome, and also it reveals some other stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. So if I showed you the graphics, it would kind of the cat would be out of the bag. So in the meantime, we're gonna keep the tape on there. I like using them because, again, I got to test this stuff. I got to use this stuff, and if I'm going to be live streaming pretty often, I want to use the stuff that I'm playing around with because I want to hear how it sounds amongst the stuff. So it's sort of weird that you can't see it, and the tape is annoying because I can't read the text now most of the time. But we could all just get past that. It'll be revealed soon enough, and maybe I'll do an episode where I just slowly peel off the tape. Because what I found was when I put the tape on, that one layer of tape wasn't enough, so I had to put a layer of tape down, then another layer of tape, and then a Sharpie, and then another layer of tape, so it took way longer than I thought it would. Way longer than it needed to take. Wildly unnecessary. I have a lot of extra random cables going on here. So, let's get rid of them. I think that's most of them. This black cable and this black cable here are going to the visuals that you guys that I haven't even used, so you can't even see, but I promise you they're doing something. Yeah, listen to that. It's like oh, I love that sound. It's kind of lo-fi, but really rich. See, at this point, this patch, there's not a ton going on. Like I said, we're listening to the primary oscillator. It's not even being modulated by anything. Into the dynamics controller in filter mode, I'm plucking it. The the Gibbon is just doing its thing with a gate and a pitch. We are listening to the local Florist into the delay. With some reverb, I can turn all the effects off sort of one at a time here, and we'll see what it sounds like in its dry state. There we go. It's amazing when you hear these things, again, dry. It almost sounds naked because we've listened to it with all these other effects on it for so long. But what you can hear is the richness, and you can hear the harmonic content that this does have, and it's just primed for effects. So we can let's add some modulation internally here. We add some ring modulation. So this is ring modulation between the primary and the secondary oscillator. Let's see what we do with that. Evan, that's great news that you said that. I really appreciate that. I worked really hard to make sure this stuff is visible on whatever you're watching it on. Spent a lot of time on that. So I'm glad you can read it, and I'm glad you can see it. I'm glad it's clear. I'm broadcasting in 4K, so if you can see it in 4K, great. If you watch it on your phone, great. I do always recommend headphones, though, because you can hear it quite a bit more. A lot of times I do a lot of really low frequency stuff, and that doesn't translate into phone or laptop speakers. But not I can give you a scale here. I guess I'm not really in it. Me for scale. Then there's this camera. This is the effects camera. This is all the video coming through this, which is sort of the glitchy effects stuff. But anyway, I digress. Back to this. I like this. It has sort of a watery vibe to it. Yeah, Herman's the king of headphones. Herman came over the other night. We sat in my backyard and had a nice chat. His hand is healing well, which is really positive news. We're hoping to get back to doing clock experiments in the hopefully not too distant future. We're not going to be doing it from my backyard anymore, though. So this could lead basically right back into the patch I had going the other night, which would be something like this. If I just take two sine waves here, I'm going to pan them hard left and hard right on the mixer. I'm going to bring them up to... that's kind of what we had going on the other night. It's easy to add sort of the mellow flooring with the sine waves that just kind of fills it in and makes it feel good in your head. And when I do this, I like to get them slightly out of phase, slightly out of tune with each other, so that the phase sort of swims in and out from the left to the right ear. Good night, Hidden Devices. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out. Hope to see you again. Thanks for joining the chat and not just watching. It's nice to chat with everybody. Yeah, so that's I don't know what else I can do with this tonight. It's gonna end up sounding just like the patch we had the other night, which I guess is fine. That was a fun patch. I used it then, I edited it down. After I shut the stream off last time, I edited with just the campfire, and I thought it turned out pretty well. I didn't realize it had been so long since I had put up a video. Tried to add a second oscillator here using the second Gibbon here, but I don't want them to sound the same, so maybe I shouldn't have chosen the double helix. The double helix does sound, with the wavefolder, does sound a lot like the Voltage Lab. You can get close. They have a lot of differences, but there we go. Compared to everything else, this last one sounds kind of dull, so if it sounded dull, there's only one thing you can do, and that's patch in the cascading delay network. Nothing's dull after the cascading delay network. little bit of overdrive I'm getting from this, but I'm not sure if it's quite different enough to make it stand out over the other sound. Inadvertently made another Halloween patch. It's okay, Halloween is fun. The giraffe they're cooking. I'm actually not using the crow at all in this one, or the giraffe, as a matter of fact. No mixers or filters were used or harmed making this patch. Bringing it back. How much of the roll is the MIDI verb playing right now? I will turn it off and you will hear. This is without the MIDI verb. So I think it was playing less of a roll than maybe I thought it was. Because I don't put any reverb on the bass because it'll just overdrive. Low end will just overdrive the MIDI verb, so it was just on the two sounds. If I just put it on the one, if I just add it to the one sound, the higher pitch sound, the voltage lab sound, that's kind of enough because it almost it's a super long reverb, so it kind of is enough reverb to cover both sounds, even though the second sound isn't in there. I think your ear just kind of tricks you into thinking it's just filled with reverb as well. So even though there's not a ton of reverb going on because it's so long, oh, that's interesting. This is sort of a weird angry patch. I'm still not sold on this second sound, but this is that second sound. And it's okay, but it does spread the sound. $100 for a MIDI Verb 2 is not a bad price. just paid $70 for a Reverb 3, which is probably a little high because the Reverb 3 doesn't quite have the allure that the Reverb 2 does, but I gotta say I'm really happy with the way it sounds. Maybe it doesn't have quite as much vibe as my Reverb 2, but because you can tweak it and you can change the delay times and the reverb times, I think it's worth it. I don't know. I'm a big nerd for that kind of stuff. All the Reverbs. I now have the 2, 3, and the 4, and I love them. I absolutely love them. I think they're just fun. And that's kind of why that's why I do this stuff. So, does it make sense if you don't have the other stuff to get one? Probably not. You can just use the Valhalla Reverb plugin and you're there. But I love playing with this stuff. So we can even do an experiment. So here is, let me say, this is what I found to be the reverb in the Reverb 3 that I really like. It sounds like this. This is quite a bit of reverb on this sound, but we're listening to the reverb right now. So now if I switch to the Reverb 2, and we'll see if we can see if we dig it. All right, so now this is the Reverb 2 on the longest. All right, now it's on the longest sound. And you can just hear there's maybe it's got a little bit more to it, something to it. I don't know. I think it sounds really good, but you can't adjust anything. It's just a preset. You pick it and you're kind of there. I think 29 sounds great, 28 sounds great if you don't want it quite as long. And this is back to the Reverb 3. Just a bit cleaner, maybe a little sparklier in the high end. I think it sounds good. I like it. I had an Eventide DSP 4000 for a while, and I think this sounds closer to that. The Eventide was super crystal clear, though. It was too clean for me. But this, the 3, I'm digging it a lot. The 4, I'm less into. The 4 has a bit more options to it, but I think they changed the engine completely for that one, and it's almost a different beast. I like that one less, but man, 3 sounds good. Sorry, Yotis, I didn't mean to sell you on the Reverb 2. Just use the Valhalla plugin. It sounds great. That's what I use anytime I'm not, doing live streaming or anything. If I'm recording anything to the computer, I use the Valhalla plugin. I'm a fan. The 2 in the preset, it does have more feedback, but that's the thing about the 3 is I can adjust the amount of feedback going on, and you can set the decay time and all that stuff. But maybe when I get the Reverb 1, I'll do a video comparing the 4. I don't know if anyone's done that, but that is right up my alley. run, instead of plucking this guy, we hit it with an envelope. Less. Yeah, just to be clear about these mini verbs, I don't think they were ever grades, but they just sort of, when I first started making music and I had a 4-track recorder, we also had a MIDI verb, and that's what we added reverb with everything. So I'm sort of endeared to them for that reason. And for me, that's what a lot of making music is the pleasure you get from it, the memories you have. So that's why those things mean so much to me, and that's why I'm interested in them. There's so many other choices out there that make so much more sense now. There's a million great sounding guitar pedals if you want hardware. There's a ton of great plugins. Valhalla, you can't beat that plugin. So there's so many other options. That's just the thing I love to play with. I don't know when the Gibbon and Florist would be on Modular grid. I have to get the actual panels first. Right now I just have like a proof picture, which isn't quite the same thing. It doesn't have any knobs or anything on it. So as soon as I have the actual thing, I can take a picture of it. I'm sure I'll put it up. Yeah, the Gibbon's triggering the envelope. Or trying to, at least. And then I'm going to shut it down for the night. I'm trying not to do these too long anymore, although they're super fun. I find I wake up and I'm like, oh crap, I had all this other stuff to do. So if I stick to an hour and a half, I still have time to solve all the problems at night that I need to solve before I go to bed. We'll keep the 4-hour streams for the weekends. Friday nights and Saturday nights. I've never made the bird sounds with the double helix before. There we go. 4 individual delays, and then you set each one to the shortest time with full feedback. And as long as it's getting a certain level, it doesn't self-oscillate. But as soon as the incoming audio drops, it starts to self-oscillate. So you sort of end up with this tension of trying to self-oscillate, but then not. No, the cascading delay network doesn't quite get short enough to do comb filter type stuff. The shortest it gets is about 42 milliseconds. There's trimmers on the back where you can set the length, but it only sets the length. It doesn't shift it at all, so it's 42 milliseconds to whatever you end up setting it to. I think out of the shop we have it set at like 750 milliseconds per channel, but that can be adjusted to make it shorter and cleaner or longer and nastier to your taste. And if you get sick of it, you just turn the trimmers and change it to something else. Voltage Lab, I love playing with the axis and asymmetry at the points where they almost cancel each other out. You get these really, we'll turn down the low end. You get these really sort of beautiful moments. I still have that ring mod going on too. Oh, there it is. I patch it all the time with modules that aren't screwed in because I'm sort of always taking stuff in and pulling stuff out, and it ends poorly every time. You yank a cable out and the whole thing comes out. Oh. It's an embarrassment, is what it is. So we've ended up with, let's see what cables we actually need here. I think that's it. So I think we ended up where we started, is the Gibbon giving us a random sequence of pitch and gate. Pitch is going to the primary oscillator, which is being ring modded with the secondary oscillator. And the output of that's going into the dynamics controller, which is then passing through the local Florist here. And the output of that going through the analog delay built into the voltage lab. And then into the mixer with a little bit of reverb. So I kind of took it full circle and ended up right back where we started, although I think this sound is a little more special now than it was when we started. It's super chimey, sort of wind chimey. I think the difference is when we started we were using low pass gate mode, and now we're in filter mode. I think filter mode sounds a lot better for this type of stuff. But they're both there because they both sound good. Alright, that's just about an hour and a half, so I think that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me while I totally failed to do what I was supposed to do, which was to test the Gibbon. I think what I found out pretty early on is that there are a couple little things that need tweaked, and instead of you guys watching me code fixes for it, we just played around with other stuff. So thanks for hanging out, and see you guys shortly, hopefully next time with Gibbons that do what they're supposed to do. Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Talk at you soon. Lesson 1 of the firmware update. Even the one that I updated the firmware, it's not quite doing what it's supposed to do. Lesson 1 is don't rewrite the firmware at the shop if you have both your Gibbons at your house. I think that's it. But anyway, thank you guys. I'll talk at you soon. Thanks for hanging out. It's been fantastic chatting with you, and we'll do it again soon. See you guys.